All right. Hey there. So, my guest today is Tiffany Hahn, who is a business coach for creative women and runs an amazing program called 100 Rejection Letters, which we'll hear a little bit more about. But one reason I have her here is that she is creating this really vibrant, creative business while having twin toddler girls at home. And so I've just been so inspired with your dedication to yourself and to your community while at the same time knowing what's going on in the background, literally. And hi, puppy.
Yeah.
So, welcome, Tiffany.
Thank you. It's so great to be here. I love talking about this. So I'm
All
excited
right,
to chat
cool.
with you.
So, my first question is about something a bit more zoomed out, like purpose, because I feel like to do this while you've got so many demands at home, it's got to be something that's important to you in some way. And
Yeah.
so, what do you feel drives you in terms of the message and what contribution you're trying to make through your work?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And for me, it's all about impact. So it's all about how many people can I reach with my message? Because I want people to be willing to take action. I want
Mm-hmm.
people to be willing to take risks. I want people to be willing to do things, even if it's not convenient or comfortable, because we both know most things are
Mm-hmm.
neither convenient nor comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
especially when there are kids involved. So that's a huge part of it, but also my daughters are
Yeah.
a huge reason that I do what I do. And it's because once they were born, I realized that, especially having daughters, that I wanted to be the person that I want them to grow up to become. And that is not something I take lightly at
Mm-hmm.
all. It's a huge pressure on myself. And it's more that I want to not teach them how to be the person I think they should be, but like recognizing for myself that the way that I show up to them is who
Mm-hmm.
is what's going to train them how to show up in their own lives. And
Mm-hmm.
so um, that permeates into everything I do, into how I treat myself, how I treat my body, how I feed myself, how I take care of myself, how I do my work, how I treat my friends,
Mm-hmm.
how I talk about different circumstances around them. But really, in my business too, I wanted to show them that it's possible to be somebody who goes all in and who tries her hardest and really puts effort towards something to make an impact on the world, because that's, whatever they want to do, if they want to be creative or not creative, whatever, I don't really have any qualms about that, but I want them, whatever they decide to do, especially professionally, for it to be something that really makes them happy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, to be what you're about, whatever that thing is for
Exactly.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, so my next question is about fears, doubts, habits, all sorts of things that can make it hard to step forward and do your work, make your contribution. And I speak with so many women who feel like, well, I need to get more confident before I do it, or I need to change this or that habit about my eating or that in order to do it. And I think you and I both know that those of us who are doing it have all of those things,
Hmm.
but we somehow figure out our own way of working with it. So,
Yeah.
so what do you have to say about things that you have to contend with in terms of things in the way?
Everything.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, this is so common. And I think part of it is just social media shows the really glossy exterior. And, when we got on this call, I didn't clean up my office, but like, it's a mess, right? We've got my dog barking. Everything's kind of a mess. Like, that's life. And I think for me, it's about knowing that the circumstances will never be perfect and life keeps happening. And we all want to wait until the stars are aligned. And, the stars are aligned every day. And the thing that will shift the way you show up in your life is when you start shifting the way you show up in your
Mm,
life. That could be one tiny decision not to eat the potato chips
mm,
or to eat the potato chips. I
mhm,
eat a lot of potato chips. I really like them, but I try to like put them into a little bowl and not eat the entire bag.
mhm,
Things like that, that it's more about kind of the culmination of small baby steps every day.
mhm,
And for parents, especially, I mean, watching a child learn how to walk
mhm,
or just raising a kid. Like, I look at my kids now, they're 19 months, and I think, where you guys have always been like this, right?
yeah.
That's what you think. You think you've always been like this because the change has been so gradual. But then you look back at pictures and you're like, oh my God, just 6 months ago, you were like a baby and now you're kind of a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy, but like you can do that in your own life too.
Mm.
It's about like the gradual, just do something.
Mm.
You know, that's my thing is like, I always say when people are like, but I don't know what to do. And I always say, it doesn't matter what you do, but that you do,
Awesome.
right? What matters is that you do something. And so for those of you guys listening, people, you want to like wait for the fear not to be there. It's never going to go away. I feel afraid all the time. You know, you want to know all the answers. You never know all the answers. And actually, like, that's amazing because that makes things interesting, right? So like get curious. Like I like to think of even now, 5 years into my business, everything is like here goes, let's try this one, you know, and kind of a grand experiment. And I feel like if I can detach my expectations of the outcome to that and just say like, I'm really curious to see what happens with this one, it makes it a lot more fun.
And that's a beautiful thing to show our kids, that they don't have to know what the end result is going to be, and that we can be awkward and clumsy and fail, and that we had fun while we were doing it because we felt more alive while we were doing it.
Yeah, and it's not about right or wrong. You know, I think that too with the internet and especially with online creative businesses, we see so many people who are doing it right, and there are so many rules out there and so many people saying, here's my secret formula to success, that it's almost like we go back into school where there's a test, and if you don't have the 6-figure launch in a day, then you have failed. And that's not true. Yeah. You know, and I think so one of my big things, and we tell this to our kids, is keep your eye on your own paper. Try to like really as much as possible keep your ideas pure. And a lot of times fear sends us running into the arms of social media, and that's kind of the worst place to be. Yeah.
Totally. Yes. We could talk about that for a whole nother thing. But this dovetails into your program, 100 rejection letters, which I just love because it's not 100 acceptance letters. Right. And it speaks right to the fear of what if nobody likes what I'm doing? What if they call me a fraud? All these sorts of things that keep us hiding and not making our contribution. So can you tell us a little bit about that program and how it started and what it's all about?
Yeah, so it really was my way of taking this idea of fear and failure and rejection and figuring out how we could celebrate it. Because to me, if you're getting rejected, it means that you're trying. When I was younger, I rode horses. And at the stable, they always said, you have to fall off 7 times before you're a good rider. So every time I fell off a horse, I was like, it would hurt, but I'd be like, yes. So I'm closer to being a good rider, awesome. Right? And it's sort of that concept that I've taken into my work. And when I had this idea a few years ago, and I got a few rejections, but I got busy with the yeses, because that's the big secret is most people say yes. And after I'd had my girls, they were born February of 2014. I was coming off of my maternity leave, and you know, everything was different. Everything was new, and you kind of look at your life with new eyes. And I looked at my business and I said, like, this is not good enough, right? Like what I have is not good enough for the amount of time and energy that I have to pour into to take me away from my family. And so I said, like, I got to go all in. I've got to try, because if I have to go get a job, then I want to know that at least I gave it everything I had before I threw in the towel. And so I recommitted to getting 100 rejection letters, and it's really about celebrating the failures. So I've turned it into a group coaching program so that people could follow along with me and go on their own rejection letter journey. Everybody has a tracker sheet and gets gold star stickers. And
awesome.
You put gold stars up when you get a rejection. And, you know, it's what people have told me is they've said, like, it's genius. I mean, I'll say genius. Because it takes the fear of failure out of the equation. Yeah. So that you celebrate the yes, you celebrate the no. And there are times when I don't get the no, and I'm like, oh, right. I need more gold stars, right? Because I'm trying to get to 100. And my hypothesis is that by the time you get to 100, you're on your way. You've built a habit of putting yourself out there and asking for what you need, and that it becomes second nature. And I will say I've spent the last year pitching and developing my ideas, and my business has blown up. And I send a pitch. Like just this morning, I was looking at there was a conference that I was like, oh, I should pitch them to speak. And I just, in my head, I like crafted the email. It wasn't this like, what am I going to say? It just becomes so much more natural to send the ask. And it doesn't have to be such like a fraught thing, but it does take time. So that's why it is a year-long program. And I've turned it into both about the pitching and getting the rejections, but also about branding, so that the participants throughout the course of the year will also be able to really clarify their brand, clarify their message, figure out their mission, to make sure that you're sending the pitches, but like once you get people back on your website or back into your business, they know what you're all about and that you're connecting with the right audience. Because that's something else I found is people are like, I want to write for the Huffington Post. You know, they have these big aspirations, and I say, why? And they're like, because it would be legit, you know, and maybe it would, but maybe your energy is better served writing for trying to interview people, reach out to people in different ways and connect with the different audiences. So that I think is something that I want people. It's not just about sending pitches just for the sake of sending pitches. You know, if it was that, then I could get 100 rejection letters tomorrow. But that's not what it's about at the end of the day.
Yeah, ones that are a fit that allow you to bring more of your contribution.
Exactly. Yeah. Awesome. And if you know, I always say too, when people like when you kind of get really busy with all the yeses, then it's about like stepping up your game and reaching higher, you know? And so it's you want to be doing the work, but it's also about, I mean, I know people who are like, I do so many interviews that I never have time to do my actual work. And then looking at like, well, what is it giving you? Is it worth it if it's taking away from your work? What is the most important thing? And that's another big part of the program is like setting goals. Like we actually start with setting and the big vision, because people don't know that. And they do all the pitching and they think, I want to do this thing because someone else says it, and I want to do this thing, and I want to teach an in-person workshop. You know, it's like there are these kind of standards of what's legit. And when I say like, why do you want to do that? And they're like, I don't know, I hate teaching. And I'm like, well, teach. You know, it's things like that that I really want people. It's about getting deliberate. Like that's a big secret. And all the things we do. And I think parenting has taught me so much about that, you know, in terms of like, what do I want for my kids? What are the things that I want to focus on? What are the things husband and that we want to focus on together as parents? And then how can we let the rest of it go? Because you can't worry about every little thing. And gosh, you know, as a parent, like if you tried to spend all your time doing what everybody else, what all the other parents are doing, you would drive yourself crazy, you know, and yet we do that. Like, oh, I saw someone at the park doing this. Like, should I be doing this?
So that brings me to my favorite word is workability, and figuring out what works for you. And I feel like actually moms and millennials have this in common. Like I'm not a millennial, but I feel like, wait, moms also are really good at being like, no, why would I do that if it did not serve something that is important to me or brings value? Like, why would I be doing these things just because that's the prescribed formula? So I think you've been a beautiful model of, you know, you had your business before you had your children, then you had your girls, and you've really changed your business to make it more workable. Could you talk a little bit about how you discern that for yourself and have your own inner compass about what you create, what you say yes to, what you say no to, and how you figure that out?
Yeah, that's so good. And it's, I think it's different for everybody. You know, for me, it's about getting clear on what I want for my family. And part of that is looking at financially how much I want to be making and knowing that it's not going to happen right away, but having my, like, what I call my happy number, which is 150,000 a year. Like that's the number that I'm working towards. And that I know that like, I want to make that much money, but also not work 80 hours a week. You know, I'd like to work 3 days a week if possible. It feels scary to say that on the internet. But there you go. You know, that's kind of my goal, because that gives me time with my kids. It means that my husband doesn't have to work as much, and our house is happier when he's around. You know, and he's really good at like managing the household, and I'm good at writing blog posts. So we kind of each do what we're strongest at, you know, and then I look at like really my goal of impact, right? That's my purpose here. And so then I look at like, what are the things I'm doing of them? What has potential for the most impact?
Okay.
And how can I kind of best maximize my available time? And so it's really required me to, and I'm constantly changing. I'm constantly evolving. I'm constantly iterating. I'm constantly evaluating. One of my favorite exercises is like an old business school exercise called Start, Stop, Continue. And I do it at least every month, but I also do it whenever I'm feeling not, like whenever I'm like, I just want to quit. That to me is a sign to do that exercise. And what you look at is like, what's working, what isn't, and what you want to bring in next or what's missing. And I think that we think we need to get to a place where we just have it figured out and it flows. And, you know, it's like parenting, right? There's so many metaphors here. As soon as you get something figured out, like as soon as you get bedtime figured out, it changes. As soon as you get diapers figured out, like our kids now, like we'll say like, oh, let's go change your diaper. And they walk back to their changing table. But now they're like, get it, like, then it's going to be time for potty training, which is going to be a curve. And so if you're so attached to like, but we just figured out diapers, then it's not going to work. And so remaining as fluid as possible, I think is key. And like letting most things go. The number of things that I've let go of in my business has been huge this year because I only want to work on, again, the ones that are contributing to either the impact or financial goals or the things that make me feel good. You know, so it's not just about the money, you know, and I'm also not trying to have $1 million business. Like, I don't want to work that hard. I don't want to manage a giant team of people. That's not what I'm after because I do want the impact, but I also want the one-on-one. I still want to answer my emails. I still want to be the one sending out the pitches for my podcast. Like, I think that's actually really important because I know the connection piece for me is such an important factor. So knowing, I think getting clear on like what you want, I don't think you can assess the workability of it unless you know the why and unless you know what you're working towards.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And that requires trusting that you have a source of that wisdom that's worth paying attention to not always be looking outside, like what should those goals be? But if you have a desire, something you want financially, time-wise, impact-wise, that's enough, that you're wanting it is worthy of some attention and putting energy behind it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And with like every single thing, right? Like you can do that with every aspect because there's always going to be someone out there telling you how to do it. And how you should do it. And I think too, knowing when to go after the information, like you don't need to know all of that stuff. You don't need to know SEO right now if you just started blogging. It's not important. What's more important is that you take the baby steps and you do the work. You know, just like when your kid starts walking, does that mean that you need to get that kid a bike?
Right. Yeah.
No, not yet. Right.
Yeah. So to stay in contact with what's going on right now and to trust that we always need more help and information, but to start from a centered place of I can figure out what that next thing is, not just responding to all the shoulds that are coming from outside of us.
Right. And like for parenting, I've tried really hard to like only learn what I need to know right now. You know? So I haven't even read potty training books because I don't need to know that yet, you know? So right now I'm reading like how to get my toddler to eat vegetables, things like that, or how to deal with like the no, which we've talked about before, which is like all that happens at my house right now. And it's adorable. But so like trusting that the information is going to be out there when you need it to. And I had a client once who said, you know, the internet never ends. And it was such a light bulb for me because I was like, oh yeah, before the internet, we would read a magazine or read a brochure and it ended. And then we would put it down and get on with our lives. And the internet you can never read every article on the internet ever. Even if you started today and try, you know, it just would be impossible in the course of your lifetime. And so don't try. We don't have to hoard. I feel like Pinterest has made us become like idea hoarders. And I don't know if it's good. I don't know.
Right. Well, you said something, it was maybe like a one-off line in a blog post, but I use it all the time and quote you when I do with clients is is create rather than consume, that we're always consuming so much of other people's ideas and things that they've created, and to pause, and in that space where we're consuming, maybe stop and do a little creating of our own.
Yeah. And, one like kind of tangible tip, I have a couple of tangible tips for people listening. A couple of my favorite things to do is, one, create before you consume.
Okay.
So like, I really try not to look at the internet in the morning. I try to write. Like, I try to have a daily writing habit, and it ebbs and flows, right? To trust your natural patterns. Right now I'm in the really busy work phase, so I'm not writing as much because I'm having to be a little bit more reactive, and it's fine because I know that at the end of the month, things are going to calm down and I'll be able to get back into writing. But I don't look at the internet. I don't look at, my phone's not beside my bed. I don't roll over in the morning and look at Facebook while I'm still in bed. You guys don't do that. Take Facebook. Like, you do not need Facebook on your phone. Everybody, I promise you will be fine in the grocery store line without it. And then there is, for Google Chrome, there's an awesome plugin called the Newsfeed Eradicator, and it takes the newsfeed off your Facebook. And so for me, I use Facebook for my business, for my group coaching programs, and I have to be on it pretty much every day, at least a few times a week, but I would get so sucked into the newsfeed. And so now it blocks the newsfeed from my page. And so I just don't get consumed with like everybody else's stuff. And it's so liberating.
Yeah.
So it lets me focus more deliberately on what I want to be doing.
That's awesome. And I love, they give you little quotes to kind of, I love the one from Fight Club that's like, you're dying right now in this minute that you're looking at this. Well, I'll put a link to that, to Newsfeed Eradicator, in the show notes. All right. Well, you have a session, your next year of 100 rejection letters is starting really soon. So I'm going to also include that in the show notes, how people can find out more about that. And all things Tiffany Hahn you can find at tiffanyhahn.com. Is there anything else you want to direct people to?
No, I have a podcast. If you like what I have to say, I have a podcast called Raise Your Hand, Say Yes, that you can find a link to it at tiffanyhahn.com, or in the podcast app. You can search it. It's called Raise Your Hand, Say Yes, and look for the gold dinosaur and have a listen.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you.
Okay.